Again, thank you folks for coming. We really appreciate you being here. We promise to have an informative and entertaining presentation for you. So that means you guys are going to have to do some magic tricks, juggle. I don't know how you're going to handle that, but make it entertaining, okay?
I will try song, dance. I tell you what, I'll promise not to sing.
So good morning, everyone. I am Cameron Kennemer. I do not dance or sing or juggle or anything like that. I am a business development executive from ITEEK. ITEEK is a managed IT service provider based out of Silicon Valley, and we have offices in Los Angeles and Texas too. We're growing all the time. And today I am joined by some literal IT wizards. We've got DJ Foreman. DJ is the Chief Technology Officer here at ITEEK. DJ has been helping businesses for a very long time. He's been doing it for over 30 years, and he's got a lot of great experience and a great reputation in the field, especially when it comes to cybersecurity. And he's going to be talking to you folks about that today. We also have Rhett Bray. Rhett is the president and founder of Beacon Path. Beacon Path is a property casualty insurance company specializing in business insurance. Rhett is an expert in business compliance. He's also an expert in cybersecurity. He's a very valuable asset to us to help out with that and to businesses like yours. Each of our speakers is working really on the same problem, protecting your business from two different angles. DJ's working on it from more of a preventative aspect, while Rhett is providing a safety net in the event that there is some kind of a data breach. And we work together because IT handles the technical side of cybersecurity, like protecting your systems and data. Beacon Path provides insurance coverage to protect you, again, providing that safety net. And it enables us to really provide a full circle solution to cover every aspect to protect you and your business. And today we'll be covering some of the threats that are unfortunately out there affecting businesses these days. You read about it all the time in the newspaper. We're going to talk about how you can protect yourselves. We're going to give you some actionable insights that you can use to bring back and make a positive impact on your business. And last but not least, we will be offering a free web scan and vulnerability analysis to help you determine if there's any issues that need to be worked on. And we'll also be having a question and answer period at the end, so we can go into more detail on anything that you're curious about. Now I'm going to turn it over to DJ. DJ, can you talk to these folks about what's going on out there these days?
So, social engineering is a really big thing. We've all heard the term used before, but what's not really understood is that there's quite a bit of nuance to it. There's the technical jargon, but then there's also the legal precedent that happens because of this. Social engineering really boils down to one big thing, and that's usually email. There's certainly a little bit more to it, but a perfect example, last week we had a client who owed a vendor $800,000, $814,000 to be exact. That vendor then sent them an email saying, hey, we'd like you to switch banks. Now, boom, that should be a red flag. We've all heard of this type of attack before, where someone sends you a fake email, and they try to get you to change banks. Now, in this case, our client did the right thing, and they said, hey, I need a phone number to call someone to verify this. But that's where they made the mistake. They should have had a pre-existing connection, a pre-existing set of a call tree, a phone number to call to verify this type of thing. What they did is they asked for that phone number in the email. And unfortunately, in this case, the vendor had been fully compromised. And so the bad actors were sending emails from their actual systems, from their actual email server, from their actual email accounts. And it was completely invisible because it was an email coming from them, but some bad actor had logged in. The way that you protect against that is making the phone call. But the mistake that was made was asking for that number within the potentially compromised communication chain. Now, that's why we talk about the real problem. the problem has always been, the problem that is today, and the problem that will always be is us. It's you, it's me, the human element. That's what matters in this whole equation. That's the point where everything breaks down. You can have all of the protection systems you want in place, which they did, but the human error piece is what caused the problem. So the most common forms of phishing are usually coming in via email, but then there's also much more complicated ones, right? Pre-texting. That's where you get a text message and it leads you to want to click on something, or it leads you to going to your email. And it's always the same thing. It's a call to action. It's a quid pro quo. We're going to give you something, or we're going to give you something if you give us something. Or it's this sense of urgency of, oh, I quickly, my IT admin wants me to change the password. Anytime you have that feeling, you need to question it. You need to question why you have that. So the way that you can most effectively do this, and this is what we talk about in most of our training, cybersecurity awareness training, is at the email. Because 90% of these attacks come from email, it's really important to understand what each piece of it means, but also understand that each piece of this can be manipulated. So good example is a lot of email systems, when they show you who sent you the email, it'll just say from Molly Connolly. It won't actually show you that it's molly.connolly9372@gmail.com. It just says Molly Connolly. That's a problem. You should always be looking to see where these emails are coming from. If you are getting emails normally from molly.connolly@coca-cola.com, and all of a sudden she's sending you an email from Gmail, that should be a massive red flag. The other ones are date and timestamps. Now, the one thing that's really important for people to understand is those timestamps will often change dependent on what your time zone is and or what the time zone of the server is. So your server might exist in a completely different time zone than you exist in. And sometimes what will happen is those timestamps, they get a little wonky. They get a little messed up. And so it's a good thing to look at. Now, the other one is is there an attachment? Should they have sent you an attachment? Any of those hyperlinks? There's a term called mousing over. When you move the mouse over something, you'll get what's called a context menu. It pops up. And in the case of any hyperlink, if you mouse over a hyperlink, it actually will show you what the link is. Now, if that link looks funny, don't click on it. It's really as simple as that. And even though I said that out loud, sometimes it's not quite that simple. Sometimes these URLs look very misleading. A good example is the Russian alphabet, the Cyrillic character set. Some of their characters look exactly like English characters. And so it's very difficult to determine the difference between those sometimes. So just got to pay attention. And that's the number one thing you can do is constant education, ongoing. Now, you're like, okay, DJ, you scared the heck out of me now. What do I do? Well, there's a few basic free steps that you can do. Go to this website, mxtoolbox.com. Very reputable company, been around for a really long time. We love them. We use them all the time. And they have plenty of free services that you can use. You can go in there and take a look and see what your email looks like. The three big things are going to be the SPF, the DKIM, and the DMARC. SPF, Sender Policy Framework, all that means is that's a list of the servers that are allowed to send email as you. So if you use any kind of marketing service, any Constant Contact or Salesforce, like any of that stuff, they often send emails under your domain. They have to be in that SPF record or those emails are going to get bounced. DKIM, that's cryptographic signing. There's a term called non-repudiation. What that means is that you can unequivocally prove you are who you say you are. And we do that mathematically through cryptography. And then DMARC. These are the three big things that you can all take a look at for free right now today with your domain. You can look up any domain, frankly. You can get a sense for how secure the people you do business with are. DMARC is the last piece of this puzzle that most people overlook. They forget about it. What that does is if somebody's out there sending emails as you fraudulently, other servers, like nobody's going to call you and tell you that. They're just going to block your email, and then you're going to get a bad reputation. You're going to end up getting on blacklists. Now, what DMARC will do is it allows random strange servers, people who don't know you, to send you a report saying, hey, I'm getting weird emails from you or supposedly from you, and I'm blocking them, and here's why. If you don't have that in place, you'll never know if someone's trying to impersonate you because it's highly unlikely someone's going to call you up and tell you. So I'd like to introduce you now to, oh, wait, I forgot the web scan. There's a goofy thing in marketing that where you're not supposed to call things free, right? Because then it eliminates the value of it. So I'll tell you that this scan costs thousands of dollars to perform. But we're willing to give before we get. It's something that we believe in. It's an old axiom by Dale Carnegie and all the many business books that he's written. And I believe in it firmly. You have to give before you get. And so that's what we're all about here. That's the kind of people we are. We want to show you, here's some actionable information about your environment that you can use to make smart decisions moving forward. Now, those decisions should be to carefully look at your insurance coverage, take a look at your cybersecurity, look at the exclusions. I have $1 million in coverage. Oh, wait, but if it's a social engineering, I'm only $250,000 of coverage. Okay, let's account for that. Let's figure out if that's enough. Does it need to be more? Things get complicated, and that's where you need to start talking to people like Rhett Bray. I did it backwards. I almost said Brett Ray.
It's okay.
So, Rhett, I know. Would you please tell everyone what they don't know about insurance?
Well, one thing I'll just say is that we don't know what you know, so we should look to have somebody help us along those lines. So there's a new mindset with cybersecurity, different than your general liability, your property, your commercial auto, and it's this. And I didn't come up with this. I would have loved to, but it's not if, but it's just when you're going to be breached. Your doors are knocked on 24/7 every day by bad people out there. The change in mindset is that, again, not if, but when am I going to maybe have this breach. So our next one that comes up here on Cameron is that we touch bases on, and it's the role of cyber insurance. And we'll just talk about insurance for a second. The definition really of insurance is this: the ability and the means to control vast sums of money for a lot smaller number. It's like, I'm going to rent $1 million and put it in an escrow account for myself. How much do I have to rent it for, each month or each year in order to control that money? And that's what insurance is. Cyber insurance is that escrowing of that money to protect you from benefits that you're looking to get from your cyber insurance. And part of that is the financial side that goes with this. This is what we've heard and found out, is that businesses with 1,000 or fewer employees, is that the increase is 46% higher increases that these companies are being broken into. Companies that are 100 employees or less, is that the hacking and the breaches are up 350% from a year or two ago. So they are really knocking on your door. And the average loss, the amount, is just shy of $3 million, which when I heard this just scared me to death, because that would just take us completely off the map of the world here. Your risk management that requires to qualify for these cyber insurance policies is that the insurance companies just aren't going to say, I'll give you a policy if you just pay me some money. Is that I'm going to go to these notes here for a second, because these are the kind of questions you're going to be asked. And I'll say this too, that web scam that GJ just talked about, this would be a place for you to be, with no cost or obligation, to kind of check and see how strong and the positions you're on. But these are the kind of questions you're going to be asked about in regards to getting a cyber policy. One of the first ones says your organization perform periodic security awareness training for all employees. Your weakest link, as DJ said, is the employees. They don't know, they're not trained, so they can't make right decisions, and they make goofs. Next one, does your organization utilize multi-factor authorizations? We're going to talk about this in September, but again, it's another security kind of hurdle that people have to get through in order to get to your data. Does your organization have a cyber incident response plan in place? If you are hacked, are you going to be like chickens with your head cut off and we're going to be running all over? Or do we have a plan of attack? And what we do, our next steps to mitigate and reduce the attack to the minimum we possibly can? Does your organization have a disaster recovery and business continuity or continuation plan in place? Does your organization employ access control measures so users only have access to data that they really need to. So not everybody in your company may need to have data or information to your financials. And here's another one that's big. Does your organization have mobile device security policies in place? Years ago, or I say years ago, 2, 3 years ago, so many businesses had their employees leave and go to home. And every one of your employees that now works remotely, either at home or somewhere else, is a new business office that you just have. So we're used to have everybody maybe working in one office in one location, and you have to secure those walls. Is that now you have people in their homes scattered all over the county and maybe in other parts of the country. And each one of those is a door or a window that hackers can get themselves into. So the insurance companies want to know that you have plans and you've put safeguards in places for all those access and those liabilities. Legal and regulatory compliance is that you're working with the federal government, you're working with our Department of War and, I'm thinking of who has their tanks and their planes. The Army and the Navy on that. If you're working with them, they have regulatory compliance that you have to meet. And I'll mention this to you. General liability, you kind of have to have in order to get the keys to your office. Property coverage, if you have a loan on your building, is that the bank's going to ask you to have coverage in place there. Workers' comp, you need to have coverage in place. It's not required yet, but it will not be too long until cyber policy is going to be required. And for this reason is that there's 2 areas of protection for your cyber policy. One is they call it the first party, which is the protection for you. The second is they call third party, and it's to protect you against the lawsuits that will come from your customers or clients. Is that your customer and clients are now concerned is that you need to make sure that your house is in good order, because if you get infected, it is not much of a hop, step, or jump from those hackers to move from yours into your clients, and that they're going to be breached and they have a problem. So your third party is the lawsuits that will come from your customers and your clients on that. There's no better time than now, I say, to take action for you at least to review your current policy to make sure that your protection is in place, or that you should be looking with either your insurance broker or we'd be happy to touch bases with you in regards to policies and protections that you should have in place. Because again, as we said earlier, it's not if, it's just really kind of a matter of when. We will do and be happy to do a free policy review, a thorough examination of your current insurance policy, identify gaps in coverage if there are any or overlaps, and update the terms, ensure that you're getting the best value and protections you need. If you put more protections in place, is that you can negotiate a better rate from the insurance company because they believe you're a better risk. This will give you peace of mind, understanding exactly what you're covered for cost savings. As I mentioned before, discover potential savings, which will help you in negotiation the best rate you can get with your insurance carrier, and personalized advice, get tailored recommendations based on your unique situations. It can either be with us, we'd be happy to do it, or now you have better questions to ask your current insurance partner. Is that, where do I stand here on social engineering? Where do I stand here in regards to my third party or first party protections? You're going to be a smarter consumer, which is going to be a better situation for you for your policies and protections in there. So there I go. Cameron, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Rhett. I really appreciate that. Thank you also, DJ. Really important for IT services companies and managed security services companies to be working together these days with brokers who specialize in cyber liability insurance. It's a lot more complicated than it used to be. Back in when it first started, they would write a policy for whoever. They'd come in, they would say, here's your monthly premium, now you're covered. But that didn't work out so well. All these businesses started making claims, they got hacked. People were sharing passwords, nobody had any idea what was going on. And, obviously that caused a lot of problems for the insurance companies. The providers had to pay out a ton of money in claims. So now they're a lot more restrictive on what is going to qualify for cyber insurance policy. And that means that you need some technical help sometimes to help you qualify, to make sure that you're covered for these policies. And that's where IT comes in. So we've got IT helping with that part. We've got Rhett providing the coverage. We've got everything covered for you. At this time, I would like to open it up from questions from you folks. Go ahead and put questions in the comments, and I will relay those to our experts for you. Okay, let's take a look here. So, Rhett, I have a question for you. What current safeguards is underwriting looking for that I need to have in place right now?
Great question. Great question. And again, from some of my notes in here is that organizations prefer periodic cybersecurity awareness training. And there's other ones too. Again, a multi-factor authorization, but this training is a big one that's going to be asked by the insurance company. They want to know that you are training your people to recognize some of the things DJ put out there, that there's training going on, so they're aware that this is happening on a quite often basis. Also, they're going to want to know that you have taken the time to put some plan of action in place when or if you get hacked and you understand that you've been breached, is that you're taking action as quickly as possible to shut things down and to minimize that breach the best way you can, because you've bought insurance because you want somebody else to have the big bucks to pay for the financial risk and costs that's going to happen. And the insurance company has agreed to that, but at this point, they still want you to be diligent in minimizing the disaster as quickly as possible. So those are a couple of the areas that you need to. If you'd like to get a list or talk about it, let me know, and we'd be happy to let you know what you kind of need to have in place. I'll say this also, last one, is that web scan that DJ had talked about, that would be probably a great place to start with. Have that looked at, it'll start to identify some areas, and you'd have a kind of a starting place where to go, that you need either that you're good or that you might need to shore up some, and that either with your current professional you're working with, or you'd be happy to talk with DJ or me, and we'd be happy to answer those questions for you.
I have another question for you, Rhett. If someone has cyber insurance coverage in their general liability policy, isn't that good enough?
I always think it's a great start, but no different. I'm sure that your policies are reviewed on a regular basis because your business changes. So your coverages, your exposures, your limits is that it's just, I'm always think it's needs to be really a little bit careful, because what I found is the policies that are usually an addendum to your general liability property policies, we found more often than not, they're not as detailed as having a standalone separate cyber insurance policy. And one of those areas DJ talked about is social engineering, is that you get your policies, you have this big number that talks about what the coverage and everything is, but the insurance companies have figured out a ways through their policies and through their exclusions to be able to reduce their liability and exposure. Sometimes that's why you have lower premiums on them. So it's not, I mean, if that's all you have, it's a good place to start. It should be reviewed. But otherwise, the standalone policy is a much stronger policy to have in place.
Excellent. DJ, I think this is a good one for you. Once a policy is in place, once the IT systems have been adjusted so that they're in compliance with all of the underwriting requirements, is there some process where they need to be updated and reviewed, audited?
What we're talking about there is ongoing auditing and reviewing. The 25-cent word we like to use that I try to avoid is attestation, right? It's too big of a word for consumption, but really it just means that you're ongoing checking. The trap is set it and forget it. That's the trap. That's not a real thing. It never has actually been a real thing, even though security vendors in the past have kind of touted it as set it and forget it. It never actually has been. And in terms of your coverage, if you're not doing ongoing auditing and reviewing, then if something happens, if there's an incident, and the thing that you put in place on day one is no longer functioning properly, guess who's left holding the bag? You are. Pardon me. And that's the problem, is then it actually creates this really interesting issue where you now have this contentious relationship with the people who are providing you that protection. You know, you get mad at your IT company, you get mad at your insurance company, but really legally at the end of the day, it's on you to know these things. So it's tough, but that's why we're doing what we're doing. It's because we see the problem and we're trying to educate you. We're trying to get people to the point where they understand everything that they're signing off on and understand that some of their assumptions about things like what's covered and what's not, and the ongoing auditing and reviewing, like there's a lot of misconceptions about that. And so that's what we're here to help lift the veil, if you will.
Very, very interesting. Rhett, one more for you. We have somebody who wants to know how long it will take to get a quote. If they wanted to get a quote, how long does that process take?
Getting the quote only takes maybe a day or two. It's the information that we would go through with you prior to submitting to the insurance carrier, because as we talked about a couple of times, there are a number of questions or answers to questions that the insurance company wants to know. And in order to get the quote, they're going to want to know how squared away you are, let's say. So we go through a list of underwriting questions. And once we have that put together, and again, DJ, we've talked about this before, is that if you don't understand the question, it's a no. You do not want to say, I think that sounds like something we've done. Yeah, I guess we're doing that, or we have that in place. And then we underwrite for that, and we get a quote for that, and you like the number and you put it in place. And it just seems like life always does, is the places where you're shored up pretty good is not where you trip and fall. It's that area that that they breached, they came in, and then when the insurance company asks the questions and looks for the documentation or support, you find out, well, I thought I had that, but I didn't. You've just spent money on worthless paper. So didn't mean to make that long. It doesn't take long, a couple of days in order to get the numbers. It might take us, a little bit of time to get through the question, and you to go back to your team and go, I have these two questions that Rhett asked me about. What are we doing here? Can we check with our IT people or whatever? And we have those put together.
Great answer. Thank you both for helping out today. You've given a lot of great advice to business owners on how they can protect themselves, not just their computers and their networks and their data, but also in the event that something does happen, they're constantly trying to figure out ways to break in. You've got to have that safety net. And Rhett, sounds like you've got that covered. Really appreciate it. We hope you guys have all enjoyed what we had to talk to you about today.
You know what? I have one other thing that I can mention for a second. And part of it was what DJ said, but this goes not just for cyber insurance, this goes for all your insurance user stuff. I like DJ said, set it and forget it. Is that I know I have that tendency. We have a tendency to do that. In IT and cyber security, forget the insurance for a second, security is that this is a living, breathing, ongoing beast that's out there. So you can't just think I put something in place and I don't continue to check it, watch it, have my team some of this, and the training is completely important. The one thing I say, as DJ said, is that it's your responsibility as the owner to make sure these things are in place. What we look to do, and where we think we might be a little different, is that we'd like to take that responsibility and that pressure off you. Is that we'd like to be a partner for you, not a vendor. So we stay proactive. Sometimes you might think we're a little pest. If DJ is saying, hey, did you do some upgrades? Have you done the training that's supposed to be necessary on this stuff? Oh, yeah, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. Is that you're an adult? You're not a kid anymore. You got to get to it. So we won't leave this all on your shoulders to have to do, because this isn't what you do. You build things, you have services, and they go that way. And the other one I'll mention that I like to say at times is that usually at time of renewal, everybody kind of renews, but they don't review. And we think it's important that you review because your business is a living, breathing animal too. It's either growing or it might be shrinking, but it's always moving. And you should, either with your current partners, make sure that you're having a review done when your policies come up so that your exposures are understood, your limits adjust as they're supposed to, and there's new rules and regulations that come out there so you're not lost or you miss something. Thanks, Cameron. Let me jump in there for a moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. We would also like to invite you folks back for our next webinar. We're going to start doing actually a series. This time we talked about social engineering and phishing. Next time we're going to be talking about multi-factor authentication. We want to do these little bite-sized learning sessions for you so you can get a better understanding of the threats that are out there and maybe learn some ways to, combat them. But what we've found often is that business owners like you are busy doing the things that you do in your business, and maybe sometimes you don't have time for stuff like this. We're fine with that. We can help you with all of that. We can take care of all of it for you. But in the meantime, keep coming back, learn about some of this stuff. It can make a huge difference. So our next one is going to be September 25th at 11 a.m. And we'll be posting that information on how you can log into that on social media real soon. You can follow us on social media, on LinkedIn, wherever it was that you found this. And you'll see the next invite coming out very shortly. Thank you guys very much for your time. Again, thank you, DJ. Thank you, Greg.